Let me describe a moment you've probably lived through. You did the responsible thing. You opened an investment account, you set up an automatic contribution, and you never missed a month. Not one. Not during the year your car broke down, not during the year everything felt tight, not once. And the whole time, somebody told you that compound interest was going to quietly turn that discipline into real wealth, that it was the closest thing to magic in personal finance. So one evening, months or maybe even years into this habit, you log in just to check on the magic, and you stare at the number on the screen, and the only thought in your head is this really it? After all that consistency, the growth barely registers. It looks almost like the account is standing still. And a dangerous little idea starts creeping in at the back of your mind. Maybe compounding is overrated. Maybe it's a story that works for other people, but not for someone like you. Here's what I need you to hear, because it's the entire reason I'm making this video. That feeling is not imaginary, and it's not a personal failure. There is a real number, a real monthly amount, below which compound interest is basically powerless to change your life. The math still runs exactly the way it's supposed to. 30 years will still pass, but if your monthly contribution sits below that line, you can do everything right, follow every rule, and still end up with a total that barely moves the needle. Most people who feel this way draw the wrong conclusion about why it's happening, and that wrong conclusion is one of the costliest mistakes in personal finance, because it sends people chasing the wrong fix for years, sometimes for their entire working life. So today, I'm going to show you exactly where that line sits, why so many people are stuck underneath it without ever realizing it, and the one adjustment that actually pulls you above it permanently. My name is Daniel, and this channel is real personal finance for normal people. No motivational fluff about the magic of compounding, no fantasy returns, just what the math actually does over time. And today, the math is going to be more honest with you than most of the charts you've seen. If that's what you're here for, hit subscribe, because by the end of this video, you'll be able to work out your own number in about 60 seconds. Before we get into the numbers, let's fix how you picture compounding in the first place, because most people imagine it wrong from the start. Forget the snowball rolling down a hill, getting a little bigger with every turn. Think about doublings instead. A broad stock market investment has historically grown by roughly 7% a year after inflation is stripped out. That's a long-term average, not a guarantee, and I want to be upfront that the future could easily come in lower or higher. But at around 7%, your money roughly doubles every 10 years. That means a 30-year investing stretch gives you about 3 doublings. Your pile doubles, then doubles again, then doubles one more time, ending up somewhere around 7 to 8 times what you originally put in. Here's the part almost nobody explains clearly, and it's the key to this entire video. All the drama in compounding lives in that last doubling. Picture folding a sheet of paper in half, again and again. For the first several folds, the thickness barely changes. It looks like nothing meaningful is happening, no matter how many times you fold it. But because every single fold doubles what came before, the final folds get dramatic extremely fast. A piece of paper folded enough times would theoretically reach astonishing heights, not because the folding changed, but because the base being folded finally got large enough for the doubling to matter. Your investment account behaves the exact same way. The early years look flat and unimpressive, almost insulting compared to the effort you're putting in. And then, if the base is big enough, the last stretch adds more value in a handful of years than the first 2 decades combined. This is exactly why so many people quit right before it gets good. The early doublings are small, and our brains read small as broken. So people walk away in year 4 or 5 convinced the whole thing is a myth, when really they just left the theater 20 minutes before the ending. Let me make that doubling idea even more concrete with a single pile of money, no new contributions added, just to show you how the shape of the growth actually works. Say a base has grown to $125,000. The first doubling takes it to $250,000, adding $125,000 over roughly a decade. Fine, steady, unremarkable. The next doubling takes it from $250,000 to $500,000, adding a full $250,000 in that one stretch alone. The final doubling takes it from $500,000 to a full $1 million in that last 10 years by itself. Same money, same 7%, the exact exact same boring, quiet process the entire time. The last 10 years did more than the first 20 combined. Nothing about the strategy changed. The only thing that changed was that the base was finally large enough for a doubling to actually mean something. Now, let's put real numbers on this, because vague ideas about doubling don't mean much until you actually see them in dollars. So let's make this concrete. Say you invest $50 a month for 30 straight years without missing a single payment through every recession and every temptation to stop. At the end, adjusted for inflation so the number reflects what it would actually buy you, you'd have somewhere around $60,000. That sounds like compounding worked, and in a technical sense, it did. Your money grew more than sevenfold from what you put in. But look closely at what that pile actually gives you in real life. A commonly used safe withdrawal rate for retirement income is about 4% a year, and 4% of $60,000 is roughly $2,400 a year. That works out to about $200 a month. 30 years of unbroken discipline, and the payoff is barely enough to cover one utility bill. Sit with that for a second, because nobody says it out loud. 30 years is most of a working life. If you start at 35, that's contributing faithfully all the way to 65, and the reward for all of it at $50 a month is $200 of monthly income. The average household spends roughly that much on groceries in about a week. Push that contribution to $100 a month, and after 30 years, you're looking at around $120,000, which produces close to $400 a month in income. Better, but let's be honest about what that actually is. It's a nice cushion, not a retirement. This is what I call the useless zone, and it sits roughly anywhere below a couple $100 a month of investing. It's brutal to say out loud, but it's true, and it deserves to be said plainly instead of hidden behind cheerful compounding charts. You can do everything the responsible adult voice tells you to do for 3 straight decades and still end up with a number that can't change your life in any way that matters. Now, watch how fast that flips once the base gets bigger, because this is where it stops being discouraging and starts being genuinely useful. Push the contribution to $300 a month, and 30 years gets you to around $360,000, which is roughly $1,200 a month in income. Get to $400 a month and you cross roughly $500,000, producing around $1,600. Get to $500 a month and you're looking at somewhere around $610,000, producing just over $2,000 a month, which stacked on top of an ordinary retirement benefit starts to look like an actual livable retirement. Notice what just happened there. Going from $50 a month to $500 a month is exactly 10 times the contribution, but the income it produces went from a barely there $200 a month to a real $2,000. The jump isn't proportional to the input at all. It's steeper, because once the base clears a certain size, that final doubling is finally working on a number large enough to land hard. Quick favor before we get to the part that actually changes your outcome. Drop a comment and tell me roughly what you invest each month right now. No judgment at all, genuinely. I started lower than I'd like to admit too, and I'll tell you that story in a minute. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes the moment they feel that useless feeling creeping in. Your brain looks at a slow-growing account and immediately decides the return rate must be the problem. 7% feels too slow, so people go hunting for something faster. A hot stock, a trending fund, a stranger online with a strategy that sounds too good to check carefully. That instinct is completely understandable, and it's also the single most expensive mistake in this entire topic, because you're reaching for the wrong lever entirely. Your money already doubles roughly every decade on autopilot, quietly, without you doing anything extra. To meaningfully beat that pace, you'd need returns that almost nobody sustains for an entire lifetime, and chasing them usually means taking on wild risk that ends in panic selling at exactly the wrong moment, turning a bigger number you were chasing into a smaller number in real life. Meanwhile, there's a lever sitting right next to you that you completely control, and it's the size of your base, the amount actually going in every month. You can't reliably make your money double faster than the market allows, but you can absolutely make the thing that's doubling bigger, and the math rewards that decision enormously, especially when you make it early. Here's the most underrated fact in all of investing, and once you understand it, you'll never look at a delayed contribution the same way again. A dollar you invest today, given 30 years to grow, turns into roughly $7.60. A dollar invested 25 years from now, near the end of that same 30-year window, only has time to grow to about $1.40. That means a dollar invested today does the work of more than $5 invested late in the game. Your early contributions are the most valuable dollars you will ever put into that account, because they're the only ones that get to ride every single doubling from start to finish. The dollar you add this year gets 3 doublings ahead of it. The dollar you add in year 25 gets none. There's another way to see how expensive waiting really is, and it might sting a little, so brace yourself. Imagine two people who both eventually settle into investing $300 a month. One of them starts at age 25. The other waits, tells themselves they'll get to it once things settle down, and finally starts at age 35. 10 years doesn't sound like a huge gap in the story of a life. But by the time both of them reach 65, the person who started at 25 ends up with close to double the final balance of the person who started at 35, even though they contributed the exact same amount every single month once they got going. The only difference between them was 10 years of doublings that one person had and the other person didn't. That's not a small gap. That's often the difference between a comfortable retirement and a stressful one, and it was decided entirely in a decade most people don't think matters yet. I learned this the slow and slightly painful way. When I first started investing, I set up a small automatic contribution, told myself the important thing was just building the habit, and figured I'd increase it later once I was earning more. I left it sitting at that same small number for years. I felt responsible the whole time because technically I was investing every single month, but those were quietly the most expensive years of my entire financial life, because those early dollars were the ones with the most doubling still ahead of them, and I was feeding the account a trickle instead of a real base. I had confused starting with finishing, and I didn't realize it until I actually sat down and ran the math, the way I just showed you. It genuinely rattled me to see in black and white that the contributions I had been quietly proud of for years were on track to turn into a number that wouldn't move my life at all. The person who got this right, in my opinion, is a woman named Diane, who spent her entire career as a receptionist at a small medical clinic. She never earned a large salary, not even close. She never picked individual stocks, never followed market news, and never had any special financial insight beyond one simple habit. By almost every assumption our culture makes about building wealth, Diane should have retired with very little to show for decades of modest paychecks. Instead, she retired more comfortably than several coworkers who earned twice what she did over their careers. When you look at how she actually did it, it's almost annoyingly simple. Diane started investing in her early 20s, and as soon as she got even a small raise, she raised her contribution right along with it, and she kept doing that consistently for decades. She didn't have a clever fund, and she never caught some lucky stock pick. What she had was a base worth doubling, and enough time for every doubling to actually run its course. The coworkers who out-earned her stayed below the line for years because they treated investing as whatever happened to be left over at the end of the month, and leftover money is almost always small. Diane treated her contribution like a bill she paid first, before anything else touched her paycheck. That one difference on a smaller income than almost everyone around her beat people who made significantly more money for their entire careers. One more thing worth mentioning while we're talking about levers you actually control. If your job offers any kind of employer retirement match, that's essentially free money added directly to your base, and it's one of the fastest ways to cross the useless line without feeling like you're sacrificing anything extra out of pocket. If your employer matches a portion of what you contribute and you're not contributing enough to capture the full match, you are quite literally leaving part of your own base on the table before compounding even gets a chance to work on it. It's worth checking today, not eventually. So here's what to actually do with all of this, and it's almost insultingly simple once you see it laid out. First, get an honest read on exactly where you stand right now. Take whatever you currently invest each month and remember that over 30 years, it's likely to grow to somewhere around 7 or 8 times the total amount you put in. If that final number and the monthly income it would actually produce at a safe withdrawal rate wouldn't meaningfully change your life, then you are below the line, and no return rate on earth is going to rescue you from that math. Second, raise your base and do it starting now instead of someday. Every single month you wait isn't just a small, harmless delay. You're giving up your most valuable dollars, the ones with the most doubling still ahead of them, the ones worth roughly 5 times as much as the dollars you'll add a decade from now. You don't have to leap from $50 a month to $500 overnight, and nobody's asking you to. But there's a simple, almost painless way to climb steadily without it ever feeling like a sacrifice. Every single time new money shows up in your life, a raise, a bonus, a tax refund, a loan you finally finish paying off, move a real portion of it straight into your contribution before your everyday lifestyle gets its hands on it first. New money doesn't have an owner yet for about a week or two, and whoever claims it first, your investments or your spending habits, keeps it permanently. If you wait too long to decide, your spending almost always wins, because getting used to a slightly nicer life happens so gradually you barely notice it happening. Decide in advance, right now, today, that the next time your income goes up, your contribution goes up alongside it, automatically without a second thought. Some retirement plans even let you set this up as an automatic yearly increase, a small percentage bump every year on a date you choose. So the decision only has to be made once, and then it simply runs quietly in the background for the rest of your career. I want to be completely clear about one thing, so nobody walks away with the wrong message from this video. Starting small is genuinely fine. Starting small is good. $50 a month is meaningfully better than $0 a month. And building the habit of investing consistently is a real, legitimate victory worth being proud of. The mistake was never starting small. The mistake is a silent, unspoken assumption that starting small means staying small forever. It was only ever supposed to mean lowering the bar just enough to get going, to open the account, to build the muscle, to prove to yourself that you could actually do this. And then you climb as fast as your real life reasonably allows, because the clock on those precious early doublings is already running whether you're paying attention to it or not. Compound interest is not magic, and it is not useless either. It's just doublings. And doublings need exactly 2 things to actually change your life. They need enough time, which is why you start today instead of waiting for some more convenient moment. And they need a base large enough that 7 or 8 times it is actually a number worth having, which is why you raise your contribution instead of quietly leaving it at a trickle for years. The people who win at this game aren't smarter than you, and they didn't discover some hidden secret the rest of us missed. They simply got a real base into the account early, and then they let the doublings do the rest of the work on their own. You can be one of them, starting with a single change this week. If this finally made compounding make sense to you, go watch my video on what happens after you cross that threshold, when your investments start earning more in a single year than you could ever save yourself, because that's genuinely the fun part of this entire story. Drop a comment and tell me what you invest each month right now. Hit subscribe so the next video finds you, and I'll see you in the next one.